Hi, and welcome to Montreal Rocks. This is Randall Wark, your host for today. So happy to have with us today MØAA. Now, if you haven't heard her latest album, it's amazing. It's been on, I just told her that probably her numbers are skewed because I've been listening to it on repeat for the last 2 days. I've been preparing for this. So great stuff. It's going to definitely put you in some sort of strange mood. It's just got this great atmosphere going for it. Beautiful vocals. The whole thing is just great, and I'm excited to talk to you today. Thanks for being with us, Jancy.
Thanks. Thank
So,
you for the intro, Randall.
oh, no problem. I always like to start with the origin story. Every superhero has an origin story. So I want to get to know the real Jancy. Like, who are you? Um, I want you to picture yourself maybe as a young child. You're maybe flipping through your parents' record collection or CD collection, or maybe it was a family member that exposed you to something that all of a sudden music took on a whole new meaning for you. Maybe it went from something that you were just hearing to something you started feeling and you started identifying with. Is there a time in your
Yeah.
life where that kind of came true?
Yes, I mean, for me, I can recall it was actually audio and visual. It was a combination. It was
Interesting.
it was Fantasia from 1940s,
Okay.
the the old school Fantasia.
The Disney.
Um, the Disney one, the vintage Disney one, and yeah, it hypnotized me. I think I was 6. And my mom told me that I was demanding to replay it multiple times in a row. But yeah, I can remember it very well. And even today, I can still have the same response. At least I think I'm still having the same response that I had when I was young, just being captivated by the visual and audio, the
It,
songs, yeah.
it's interesting because you're the first artist that has kind of mentioned the visual aspect together with the audio at such a young age, at the age of 6, and and it kind of plays well. It kind of plays well with the music that you make because it is very visual. I mean, just listening to, uh, there's only 2 tracks right now at the moment on Spotify, but there's a new album coming out within a few days, and you'll have more. And when you listen to it, there's definitely a landscape that forms in your mind. It's a very visual medium for some reason. You kind of were able to capture that. Is that something that you've did intentionally or just kind of happened?
I think it's a good question. I know that it's very important to me, the visual aspect, or having it stir some type of visual, having music provoke that. I know that's something I'm drawn to in general. So I think in the end it was unintentional. Um, and it's just my influences basically coming through in what I um, write. And I like a lot of atmosphere, as you noticed. Yeah, I'm very into just a very thick, dense atmosphere, I would
So,
say.
so we had your origin there. You're 6 years old. You're listening to uh, Fantasia. What were some of the bands that kind of attracted you at the beginning?
hmm
That kind of got you interested in maybe a genre that was closer to what you're doing now?
Um, so in the beginning, I was definitely exposed to Led Zeppelin, and I was very drawn to Led Zeppelin, actually. I mean, my mom was very into music, and she listened to a lot of Nirvana, so I definitely was exposed to that being in Seattle and growing up in Seattle. So that was like what I was hearing on the radio a lot. And Led Zeppelin was maybe a little bit later, even though it's came before, but
Yeah.
it's what I was listening to later.
Hey,
And
music is
yeah,
timeless, right?
yeah, and certain music. And I was, I got very into the again, video format, but the live DVD set for Led Zeppelin. And so I would watch that when I was a preteen, I think. I was watching every morning, getting ready for school. I was watching the live, I think it was the live in somewhere in Europe. I don't know where, but yeah,
So
it's
did
a
you have
good.
the cutoff jean T-shirt as you went to school with the Zeppelin logo on the back?
I did not, but when I was young, I actually wore, like very young, around again the age 6 time period, I was wearing really, I guess you would call it grungy clothes. I was wearing like jeans that had huge holes in them, um, and walk around baggy t-shirts. Uh, and now that's not really what I wear. I still like that look, but it was something I was doing at that time. So I guess at the time, yeah, I liked classical music, but also classic rock. But to get back to your question, my mother also was listening a lot to Dead Can Dance,
Okay.
and she was very much into Dead Can Dance, and that also hypnotized me pretty
Very
early
eclectic.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how all these influences kind of, you know, this big soup of music kind of started simmering to give you the sound that you have today.
Right.
Uh, I want to talk about your band name. Now, I don't normally talk about the origin of the name if it's been talked about before, but
Hmm.
I don't think you've talked a lot about it, except for the fact that we know that you named your band basically on the warrior gene, which is a little
Hmm.
bit different letter arrangement. It's Mao A,
Yeah.
and you're Moa.
Hmm.
So, what was your attraction to that aspect and its significance?
Yeah. I'm definitely a nerd. I would say I studied cellular biology and genetics um, at university. So that part of me, yeah, I'm always interested in science. That part has never left. But also I like the concept behind, yeah, being, I mean, not being permanently changed by genes, but it's part of identity in a way.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a powerlessness over your genes. I mean, there's a big powerlessness. We cannot change them. And there was something particularly interesting about this gene that actually I did not study, but I found out later about when I was just perusing the internet.
When you're doing your
And
nerd
it,
reading.
yeah, in my nerd reading, exactly.
Hey, I consider myself a geek, so geeks and nerds, we're top of the world right now.
Yeah. And yeah, so for me it was during, yeah, reading primary literature and uh no, but I did particularly like um the concept behind it, which is just,
Do you- would
I
you say
guess it
that?
was yeah, go
I
ahead,
don't want to
sorry.
interrupt you. Would you say
Mhm.
that maybe when you understand the biology of something, or the physical aspects of something, it might help to understand a behavior of somebody?
Yeah, um, it does help give some insight into their behavior, and that's definitely what this gene is shown to help people predict certain behaviors based on the gene, which is, I think, more rare because most of the time it's a lot of nurture. At least the argument is that most of the time it's nurture, but in this case it's nature. Yeah.
And it's kind of true with this specific gene that we all have it to some extent, but
Right.
there's kind of this form of it which is linked with aggression, or it's kind of like the where the gene kind of goes bad. It's like it's a
Mhm.
and that's what makes people possibly aggressive. What
Yeah.
helps you keep maybe aggression and anger over the past in check?
Mhm.
Do
Mm.
you have something that you use to kind of control that?
That's a very timely question. No, uh, now it's a long pause here. Sorry about the delayed answer. But yeah, I mean, for me, I have to find an outlet, probably like a lot of other people. And for me, music, playing, writing music particularly has helped me, um, yeah, just channel that energy somewhere and not carry it around, basically.
Your music often speaks of a duality. Um, and like even you have artwork behind you. Oftentimes, art and beauty are often created out of trauma. Unfortunately, a lot of the most beautiful works of art are created based on traumatic experiences. Do you find that if you can address maybe a past trauma in a song, you can maybe better reframe it and even let it go, or see how it maybe helped you along? Kind of take the
Um,
negative parts out of it and kind of let it release that negativity and kind of bring in
maybe.
the beauty of how it formed who you are today.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I can't imagine that happening, or I'm optimistic for that type of result. Uh, I don't know if I've experienced that yet, um, because sometimes when I mean, the song still carries that same energy. It didn't really make the energy dissipate. It just kind of sometimes it just summarizes
Mhm.
the feeling really well for me in such a way that I couldn't do in any other setting. Um, and I couldn't articulate in any other way. It's like the song allowed me to articulate it. But for me, it doesn't make it dissipate so
It,
much. Yeah.
it's a process, right? So maybe it will
Yeah.
eventually.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the reasons why people are so um, they can identify so much with music, a certain song. It could be even a lyric, because sometimes you're able to express a thought that maybe one of your fans has that they can't express in words, but it's a feeling.
Right.
They identify with that feeling. It might not even be the same feeling. They might be interpreting it a different way, but it could be a very powerful thing when somebody can identify with something that you wrote, a feeling that you had, and then that makes this kind of bond between the listener and the one that is singing or creating. Uh, it's a very powerful thing.
Right. I mean, that's one of the best results as well, I think, if I could imagine one, is having
That can
someone else be able to relate to it. Yeah. And feel it resonate with them. Even if it's a negative emotion, I think for me, when I listen to music that reaches me on a deep level, it helps me acknowledge certain things, certain emotions, even if they don't like immediately heal them. At least are like, okay, this person maybe also felt that way, or maybe they didn't, like
well
you said.
even the
Yeah.
fact of not feeling alone, knowing there's somebody
Yeah.
out there that feels like me is right away
Hmm.
a big boost. It's
Yeah.
like it's a little bit, it's just that little bit of light shining through the dark clouds.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I'll ask you this then. If you can build a time machine and kind of go back to a time where you can actually stop whatever past trauma, whatever negative events you had in your life from happening, but they would potentially change who you've become today, the
Mhm.
woman that you are today, would you do it? Or would you maybe go back halfway between now and then just to kind of speak to your younger self and says, it's okay. It's going to be all right. You're going to get through this.
Right. No, that's always I mean, to me, a valid question. Um, or one that I've heard people ask. It's so strange because I never seriously contemplate that question because, like you said, it would change who I am today. It's just almost impossible to decide that, um, because it's just so, uh, yeah. That's why it's even hard for me to have regret in general, that emotion of regret. I don't have that a lot because it's something that I so easily see as just out of my control completely, that it's easy for me to just accept, um, yeah, that is the way
Well,
life was, and this is the way life is. Yeah.
it makes me think of a pearl. A pearl starts with like that sand, the aggravation, and it just kind of gets coated and coated and coated till it becomes something beautiful. And I think
Right.
we are the result of our experiences, and we can become beautiful even if we're broken or fragile because we've lived through it and we've learned from it, and we're there to see another day.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Let's we're still kind of finishing your childhood. At one point you were in Seattle, but then you lived in a forest.
Oh no, not like, I mean, Issaquah,
And
yeah.
I mean, you weren't like an elf
Be-
in a tree baking cookies or anything
right.
like that, but
No, and I did realize that could sound that way. It was more like a more visual aspect because, I mean, being in Italy now, um, maybe when my perspective when I say where I lived, I say it in a different way than if I was in Seattle still. I would
downtown.
describe it as just Issaquah. I was in Issaquah. Um, but to someone outside of the US, they would maybe just have no clue
Yeah.
of that town. So, um,
It's
it's,
it's the
yeah.
countryside. It
Yeah,
wasn't
it's like
like
countryside.
the
Not
concrete.
farmland, but pine trees. Lots of pine trees. Yeah.
I think a lot of your writing process involves um, writing alone and maybe kind of getting into the zone.
Mhm.
How do you get into the zone?
I mean, for me, it's pretty easy usually because I don't force it too much. Um, uh, for me, I usually just have to have a guitar in my hand. It starts, I think, there most of the time. Um, and yeah, I'm not even really thinking too hard at that point when I have the guitar in my hand and I'm just
Letting the words
playing,
soak in.
yeah, yeah, just playing what feels satisfying for me. Um, and it doesn't really, that's what's funny is the environment definitely probably affected some of the energy of the album, but at the same time, parts of it were written, I mean, most of it was written in Issaquah, the forested town near Seattle. But some of it was written also here in Venice or near the island in Italy. So yeah,
I,
it's almost like it's in my head most of the time more than it is influenced by an external location.
so let's talk Venice. I mean, that's quite a change. You're in Seattle, and then you go to a completely different continent, a whole different atmosphere, a whole different, uh, culture. Uh, Describe your first day in Venice.
I was jet lagged. But I immediately went, yeah, to the island and I was disoriented and going through the canal or my God, what is the word in English?
Say it in
The
Italian
Calle.
and
It's like,
translate.
okay, the Calle, it's the, oh my God, it's not an alley because in America we have alleys, but whatever the pathways along Venice, you can get lost very fast if you're not from Venice, of course. And yeah, it can be disorienting, especially being jet lagged, but it was very, yeah, you could feel I'm in a different place. At that moment, I could feel that very strongly.
I mean, I've moved my whole family, two kids, and we went to Mexico for 5 years. And it's interesting to experience that, to go to a different culture, to understand that there are many ways to do something. We might think our way is the best, and but to see how things work, regardless if we would do it the same way, it kind of helps us to, you know, be more at one with other people and to understand differences and understand how we can all coexist, uh, and that we don't have to be right all the time. What did you learn from your experiences since you've landed, walking through those
Mhm.
narrow uh, Calais?
Calais, yeah, yeah, right.
What have you learned since then?
Mhm.
What's the lesson that you got from the people of Venice?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I don't know if I got a very direct lesson specifically, relating to their culture or the culture here. necessarily. More, it's just more internally, my perspectives have changed over time of being here. I think before I came here and was here for a longer period of time, my perspective was very much, I mean, I was open-minded, of course, to other cultures, but my perspective was still very, I mean, narrow, and it wasn't intentional. It just was that way until I came here, and it just inevitably kind of widened my perspective. And it's quite abstract. I don't really know the exact
No,
ways it did that, but
no,
yeah.
I completely understand, and it's a I'm sure it's a different pace of life. They have a different view of day-to-day activities. You know, in Canada and the U.S., everything is go 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 go. And
Yes.
when I was in Europe, it was much more a little bit a lesser of pace, except maybe in London or the big city. But in the smaller cities, you just feel like the pace is slower. People take time to enjoy things. Uh, I think that can seep into our own personality, where we get to live. We don't have to be
Hmm.
running all the time. We get to actually walk sometimes. It's a nice feeling.
Right. Yeah, it's been very helpful for that exact reason to slow down. Also, it's been, I mean, it's great having had recorded the album here. Um, it's easy to focus here because maybe of that aspect that you mentioned, that you can relax and there's not as maybe as many distractions.
Mhm.
Even before COVID
Yeah.
happened, there was not as many distractions. Yeah.
Parts of the album was written in Seattle, and parts of it were written in Venice. And of course, it was recorded, and it's about to drop April 2nd. The
Mhm.
album's name is Euphoric Recall. Uh, what's your favorite part of making that album? Do you have a special
Mm.
memory of where everything just that one day where everything was just working?
Ah, sorry. No, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at when it was all working. Um, I feel like I felt that when it was finished, when we finished recording it more
That was the euphoric
than
memory.
during. Yeah, that was the euphoric moment, if you want to play on the title. But um, I'm trying to think during the recording process. It was a long recording process, actually. We spent like a year because the studio is where we are,
Mhm.
so it's very convenient. Um, and yeah, I would say for me, it was upon completion that I felt a little bit more satisfied. I'm a little bit more of the type that maybe feels not so much satisfaction during the creation of art. Yeah,
You prefer the finished product.
I think so. Sometimes even that's questionable. Really, just being totally honest. It takes me, I think I have to have space from the work, even the final product, to have any appreciation for it.
It's funny because I love art. I
Hmm.
notice you have art in the background, and I always wonder at what point does the painter say, "I'm done. Like no more touch-ups.
Mm,
This is it." Like because you can
no.
always go back. Especially if we're a person that's like attention to detail or a perfectionist, you can go back for a lifetime. But at a
Yeah.
certain point, you have to say, "Okay, that's a snapshot of who I was at the time, and I'm okay with it. And now I'm
Hmm.
working on the next snapshot of who I am now." So what's coming up
Right.
next for MOA?
Oh, well, there's more videos actually to be made. Again, I'm very much into the visual aspect. I want
Very dreamy and
to.
mysterious and
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the next ones will still have some of that effect, but maybe a little different twist on it. But it'll still fit within, of course, the mood of the rest of the album, which is, I think, a consistent general, like you said, I think at the beginning, a general atmosphere, a consistent
Yeah.
mood.
Oh,
Um, but outside of that, musically, I am already writing new songs. Um, so I want to, I really like writing. That's something I enjoy probably the most, that process, more than the recording process, like you asked. Yeah.
what about the performing? Do
Mm.
you enjoy the?
Yeah, we have an agency that is looking at November here in Europe. So we're crossing our fingers that we have a live band put together, and we've been rehearsing. But yeah, so we hope things will open up.
So the pandemic is over. We're finally able to have live music again. What will be the first song you play? The first song live.
It'll probably be Exist.
The
Yeah.
first song.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Just
I mean,
kidding.
some people might argue that X marks the forest song because of the video being in the forest, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll
Like
be
I said,
Exist.
I'm hijacking your word. I'm putting my own. So that's all good.
That's okay. Yeah. Whatever your interpretation. Hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Moa. Uh,
Yes,
it was
of
great
course.
talking to you. Like I said, listen to the. I'll put the links to the videos. The songs you could easily listen to them on repeat, and we got to, you know, share this with the world. I really thought it was some great music. I can't wait for the album to come out, and try to find a way to get my hands on some vinyl because I think it's the perfect thing I want to listen to on my turntables, just to get the full richness of the sound, not just the one little speaker. I think we're selling ourselves short by just listening it to off a phone. So do yourself a favor, put this on a big sound system. It's going to sound amazing. It's going to take you on a trip, maybe in the forest of Seattle or the small town is next to Seattle, or maybe you'll be traveling to Venice along with Jancy. Thank you so much, Jancy. Really enjoyed our
Thank
talk.
you. Thanks, Randall. Thanks.